Called it Operation Mad. Reason why?
Because everybody has potential. Everybody has a gift.
100%.
And they're born here to do something meaningful. What would you tell that person?
Confidence is never first. It's courage before confidence. It allowed me to know that this world isn't as harsh as they say it is. By having nothing, it allowed me to work to get something. But it started with a dream.
Who has been the shape of your life and been able to sort of help you and guide you now?
Oh, wow.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back, man. I know it's been a while. So this is the Rise podcast. It's been a while since we did this. So in this podcast, we interview business owners and entrepreneurs who are doing amazing things in the community. We want to be able to share their story, be able to help the next generation. So I'm your host. My name is Hanny Mehari. I'm the founder and CEO of Hanny Mobile. Today, I have a special guest. I have Michael DePeazer.
How you doing?
He's the owner of F&I Accelerator, right?
You got it.
Yeah, and he's also the guy behind F&I Masters.
Yes.
So, Michael, welcome. Thanks for being on the show, bro.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. Anytime we have an opportunity to share any information, I'm definitely there.
Thanks so much. So, Michael, I seen something that you posted. You said that it's not what your team knows, it's what they believe. So tell me, how has when you were first getting started, how has when you didn't believe in yourself, how did you overcome that?
Good question for one. I mean, belief is one of those things that a lot of people struggle. It's actually what holds them back in a lot of ways. And, I had to look back in my past. And I had to notice that, there is always this feeling of unbelief on what I'm capable of, because we have one life out of 8 billion people. So we could hardly kind of see anything outside of our own experience. But when we reflect and look back at our past, then we start to see some patterns. And those patterns become clear. So I realized that I really never knew what I was doing. I was just willing to take the step. But once I took the step, something else formulated those opportunities for me. So as I looked back and I saw that pattern, I started to push that pattern forward. And I call it faith today because it means that you just move forward, not knowing what the outcome could be, but trusting that it was always good. And I started doing that, and I saw this magic that things are unfolding. And then as you do it more, you become more confident, and that confidence allows you to kind of move without having that limitation. Or even if you have the belief, by reflecting on the past, you see that things always work out. So it's really faith is what I would say was the key to that transaction, for sure.
Yeah. And I know Tony Robbins talks about looking at your parents. You're looking at your parents and your upbringing, how that determines sort of, your future, what that's going to look like. So tell me, when you were starting your business, how did F&I Accelerator come about?
It was a natural progression. It was about, taking life circumstance and transforming it into something more. For instance, I was a finance manager for 19 years. And within that role, I really excelled. But I always had the feeling and the want for more. But I didn't know how to get it. I was making good money, like 6 figures, great money, but I didn't have that reason to jump until circumstances happened. Dealership changed formats. I felt like, look, this is an opportunity to leave. Because of that opportunity to leave, I created that idea that, hey, what could I do? So what I did was I paused and I said, what am I going to do for a month? I was out of a job. I said, I'm going to watch 100 YouTube videos on any information and see what I landed, knowing that I'm going to run into something that I could transform. I ran into a consulting course that taught me, hey, all you have to do is find someone's current state and their desired state. And if you could solve that problem, you have a business. So I created a hypothesis of how I thought I could solve the problem. Now, as a finance manager, like I said, for 10 years, 15 years total in the dealership world. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, what problems do they have in the dealership? And I noticed it was mindset. A lot of people are prejudging people. They're taking their limitations. We spoke about beliefs earlier, and they're taking those beliefs and they're allowing it to slow them down. Whereas I thought, okay, I could teach how to unlock that because I did it myself. And then the technical aspects of the job, a lot of people don't have a process. So I had a hypothesis, mindset and process. And these are the two formulas. Now, that was just an idea. I was never a trainer. I was never somebody who thought I could influence people in that way. But I took this idea and I ran with it. So what I do at F&I Masters is I teach finance managers in the auto industry. So basically that idea of how to transform someone, it came into just an idea. Ideas are nothing. A lot of people have ideas. They absolutely mean nothing. You have to bring it to the physical by taking action. So what I did was I took action by reaching out to dealerships, seeing if I could try this process. And as I did that, I got proof of concept. And as time goes by, you get that confidence. Confidence is never first. It's courage before confidence. So anybody who has an idea, look back in your life. and you'll notice a trend. All you had to do is think of something, do what you think you need to do, and for some reason something else conspired to
Mm,
make it work. And that's
mm.
the formula that I use to start the business. And today it's very successful. I'm traveling around the country teaching, and it's very unique and niche. And no one's charging what I charge per person because of the results that I get. So it's
Mm.
God bless.
Yeah.
God bless.
No, man, you're hitting a lot of the main points in entrepreneurship, which is the mindset and the will to go do it. So, Michael, tell me like your upbringing. How has, because you said you changed your patterns. You
Hmm.
didn't come from like a wealthy family, of course. How did, like, you said earlier, you're telling me from your Jamaica. Tell me your roots and how did that you were able to develop where you are today.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, that touches a heartstone because my mom came from Jamaica, my dad came from Guyana. I live downtown Winnipeg, 70 Furby Street. At the end of the day, resources were slim. I remember we couldn't have some of the things that we see out there, right? But that's what gave me a sense of humility. It humbleized me. There's
Mm-hmm.
times where the stove was open to create heat in the house, and I didn't know that till later when I grew up. My mom mentioned that's what was going on. So by being in that environment and knowing how things could be, it gives that opportunity when you strike any kind of success to reflect on that and kind of be grateful for that success. So I feel like what my upbringing downtown Winnipeg, I wouldn't change it. It gave me not only multiculturalism, I got to know how different communities operate, which is important because a lot of people have stereotypes of different communities. But when you live in the center of the Winnipeg, especially where it's like so diverse, you get to understand that, nah, man, everybody's cool. They have their own benefits, they have their own ways of development, right? We
Mm-hmm.
all do. But at the end of the day, it allowed me to know that this world isn't as harsh as they say it is.
Mm-hmm.
But by that being said, every stepping stone I took, by reflecting on where I was, I allowed myself to gain that gratitude of where I am. So what I'm saying is, contrast is important, and I had a lot of it. By having nothing, it allowed me to work to get something. So if you want to really grow and you want to develop yourself, if you do the stuff in life that's easy, life becomes hard. So I feel like I had a harder upbringing, and it
Mm-hmm.
made me focus on myself. So then life became a little easier because I worked on some of those limitations earlier. So my upbringing is core and key to my growth. I sometimes drive by my old house and I reflect at the times when I lived there and where I am today. And that reflection allows me to keep moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
But it started with a dream. And also it reminds me, doesn't matter where you're at in life, it's where your mind's at. And that's it. That's
There you
all.
go.
So yeah, it's not about having money or resources. It's about having a mindset, knowing that you could push forward regardless. And then we'll notice that there's a hand that brings everything together.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
No, that's a great perspective, man. Because starting from nothing, being able to build the ground up, and especially, I know I'm also growing up in the north end of Winnipeg, so I know how hard it
Yes,
is, man.
yes.
It's not as easy as it looks out there, man. So, Michael, tell me, you're telling me your mom was a big inspiration. Who has been a person in your life that's been able to sort of, especially starting at that young, being in the automotive business, who has been the shape of your life and been able to sort of help you and guide you now?
Yeah, you know what? The interesting story is I talk about this with my friends a lot. So my mom was good for mindset. Like she always was positive. She never put any heavy weight on us. As a matter of
Mm,
fact, when I talk about the stove was open to create heat in the house,
yeah.
well, she didn't put that on us. We didn't know what was going on until later when I asked her and then she explained it. So she really put an umbrella under our mindset to make sure that we're not getting all these different, at a younger age, when you hear information that doesn't kind of resonate with who you are, you sometimes could judge yourself on it. So I feel like she gave that umbrella. But really, my real inspiration, honestly, I got to look at myself. I didn't, my father wasn't in my life.
Mm,
I didn't have any real role models. I think my inspiration came from reflection.
wow.
It really came from reflection when we kind of, to be specific, a lot of people are looking out of the window instead of looking in the mirror. When you look in the mirror, it offers you feedback. That feedback is telling you these patterns that you're consistently doing every day. And when
Mm-hmm.
you look at those patterns, you realize that's where the change is. So I really started looking at my behaviors and what I was doing, and I changed those patterns. And those patterns became patterns that created different opportunities, and those opportunities why I'm here today. So
Mm-hmm.
really my inspiration was self-reflection. Yeah.
That's powerful, man. Because most people don't take the time to really analyze. Nowadays people they have an instinct to say, "Oh, I'm gonna go to college. I'm gonna get that job. I'm gonna go."
Yes.
They don't reflect on what do they actually want. So tell me, how can a young person out there who's just getting started, what would you tell them? Like, how would you determine those patterns to see? Because everybody has potential. Everybody has a gift.
100%.
And they're born here to do something meaningful. what would you tell that person?
Great question.
Yeah.
Great question. Because at the end of the day, I speak to a lot of schools, and there's a lot of young people there who are stuck or they
Mm,
feel stuck. And they feel stuck because, there's no real guidance out there. There's that traditional go to school, get education, and then
mhm, mhm,
aspire to be something. Now, I think you first have to know where you're going, and that's key. I believe everybody, no matter how your age is, your life is designed to to
mm,
specification, meaning I use this example lots. If you go to the airport and you jump on a random plane, where are you going to end up? Random destination.
mm,
So if I leave from Winnipeg, chances are I'm not going to get to Hawaii because you got to buy a ticket so you can get the connections, right?
mm,
So, but if I went to the airport and I bought a ticket to Hawaii, I'm going to end up in Hawaii. It's
mm,
simple, right?
mm, yeah, yeah.
So when somebody asks themselves, where are they, first of all, in the first place, the question is, where are you going? And a
Mm,
lot of people don't have that answer. So what does it mean? They're getting their life exactly how they designed it. They're getting it down to spec, but they're getting the
mm,
randomness of it, right?
mm,
So the first thing I would say to anyone young is set a goal. Look in your heart. See where your heart's guiding you. See
mm,
where your heart is telling you that feels good, despite what your mindset's going to tell you. Because I always say when you're thinking of a goal, to teleport yourself. It's almost like lift yourself up, pretend you're in a helicopter, and dump yourself where you want to be. That's the destination. Okay.
mhm,
So once you have the destination and the goal, you have to start figuring out, okay, what am I going to do?
mm,
And we don't have to have the answers.
mhm,
See, my business I started, I didn't have no answers. What I had was a willingness to move forward and do what I think is the right thing. So, from a young person, set a goal, do what you think you need to do, and watch how the universe conspires to bring it to you. And
mm,
look at the feedback, and the feedback will allow you to know how to course correct and what direction to do.
mm,
You have to trust the process. So there's so much to do, but it starts with just taking action because action creates reaction, and that reaction creates feedback, and it opens doors. And it's hard to say what's going to happen. Look back in your life right now to the moments
mm,
where you didn't know how things would happen, but you took action, and then look where it led to.
mm,
So, young folks, courage before confidence.
mhm,
Don't wait for confidence. It comes after you do the stuff. Another thing I want to share is the unknown versus the known, because a lot of with young folks, it's and myself included, sometimes it's all about the familiarity,
mm,
and
mm,
sometimes it could be comforting when
mm.
you're familiar. See, I'm passionate, so I sweat when I talk. So
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is
yeah.
this is what I love. So we were designed to think this comfort zone, no matter how tough it could be, it's where it's better than the zone we don't know because it's fearful, it's change. So we rather sometimes stay in this struggle
Mhm.
of what we're at rather than
Yeah,
go out into this unknown.
yeah, yeah.
Well, look in our life. The comfort zone was never really comfortable. We always wanted more.
Mhm.
We always thought there's more out there, but we're staying small. We don't know where to go. But whenever we jump into this uncomfortable zone, it gave us all the change, the hope, the desires we need.
Mm, mm.
We need to jump into the unknown. So I say follow the heart, just jump in and do something, and trust the process and watch how things are conspiring to bring itself
Yeah.
together.
No, 100%. I'm with you, man. I actually, for me, the turning point for my life when I decided to start my business and my
Hmm.
family was doubting me. Everybody was like, why would you get into this? Like it doesn't make no
Yeah.
sense. You could go become because I was already a sport athlete. You could
Hmm.
go become an athlete. Go to school, and but you realize like a lot of people have that fear and that guilt because it's also in the programming. Like once you, like you said, the patterns are there. I knew my
Yes.
parents have already got to go to school, get an education, so these have been installed. But I think everything sort of changed when I read Stephen Pressfield's book Turning Pro, where he talked about this
Mm.
idea of the unknown. Like he talked about when
Yeah.
you start doing things that are sort of going to challenge you. You start a business, you don't know how to do sales, you don't know how to do marketing. Now you're starting to figure things out. Now you're like, oh, I can actually do this because you're learning, right? Because the
100%.
fundamental of everything is just learning. And then once you
Hmm.
learn, be able to pass that knowledge down to somebody else. So that's one thing that I realized now. It's like, oh, I'm always learning, I'm always teaching, I'm always right adapted to new information. And so that's a great way to go about it. So tell me, Michael, the automotive industry, it's a big industry, man.
It's huge, man.
It's a
It's
massive
quite big.
industry, man.
Yeah.
So I know you're teaching mindset, but I'm also big into sales. A lot of
Yes.
people want to. I tell people all the time, like if you want to start a business, you have to sell something to a stranger, right?
Definitely.
That's the first thing you got to do. Though you don't need a business idea, whatever it is. If you sell something to a stranger, now you have a business because now you have a belief that, oh, okay, this is actually possible. So how did you get started in that field, and how has it been in your journey of going into sales and
Yeah, sales was one thing I wasn't sure if I could do because it's like
mm,
it almost feels greasy sometimes. Like you're
mm,
trying to
mm,
persuade something to do something against their will. until I realized there's no sale to be had. There's information to share. There's
Mm,
awareness to be given, and
mm,
there's problems to solve. So if someone
mm,
comes in, they got a problem. You
yeah.
have to solve it. You have to articulate how you could get them from their current state to their desired state. And
Mm,
if you could get someone there, you got a business. Now, that formula works so well. A lot of people out there, they don't carry themselves in the best manners,
mm,
right?
mm,
But if someone could solve your problem, say they have bad manners, bad ways of communicating, but they could solve your problem, you'd hire them over the nice person who can't solve your problem. So the key first is to solve a problem, and if you can solve a problem, all you're doing is articulating that message. That person who wants to for the sale, they already came in for it, so you're just helping them confirm those
mm,
reasons, right? So I think sales is just a conversation. It's
mm,
about articulating again the problem clearly and how you could solve it, and then someone buys it. So it's creating awareness. What I teach is that exactly because a lot of people they're trapped up in trying to sell somebody something rather than giving them awareness, because when you give awareness, their discomforts, their feelings, that person who you share the information with, they naturally want to seek a solution, and your
mm,
product is the solution.
mm,
But it all starts by having a dream. Now, it's interesting you say that, when you wanted to start your business, how, some of the family would say, why are you doing that? Well, I knew this intrinsically before I started my business. I called it Operation Mad. Reason
mm.
why? People would say, Mike, you're crazy, man. You're making this money. Why would you do training? There's no money
Yeah,
in training,
there you
man.
go. Yeah,
This
yeah,
don't make
yeah,
sense.
yeah,
But
yeah,
my initials is Michael Andrew DePeazer. So I
yeah.
expect them to say it because they're sitting in their one lens, and they're
Mm,
looking at my life, not knowing what's in my heart and what's planted there, and trying to make decisions. Now, the same folks, when you reach success,
yeah.
they're going to say, I knew you could do it. You're
Mm,
always on it. So they're important because they allow you to know where you're at. You got to trust yourself, and that's a big key. Don't be asking anyone for too much advice
mm.
because they're looking from their lens, and unfortunately, their lens and their dreams isn't tailored to yours. So courage comes first, confidence, but you got to trust in yourself and what's in your heart.
Mm-hmm. No, that's powerful, man. You got to believe in yourself before anybody else believes in you,
This is facts.
right?
This
Because
is facts.
if you don't believe in yourself, then everything else will sort of be like a dream, right? It just you wake up one
100%.
day, you be like, oh, I think nowadays a lot of time we're watching other people, we're watching
Hmm.
the outside noise, and I think I saw a post you posted where life becomes easier when you just start focusing on you, when you're
This
not
is it.
scrolling, when you're not watching other people's what they're doing, and you just focus on the mission, on the goal, what you're going towards. So that's a great insight,
100%.
man. So tell me, Michael, like you talked about problem solving. I think in today's, if you want to make a lot of money, it's understanding the person's problem,
Hmm.
being able to get the money at the end. So what is your process to seeing, for example, someone wants to come and buy a car, right? What does that process look like when you're sort of dealing with somebody? Because I think empathy plays a big role, right? I think a lot of people
100%.
nowadays, I see a lot of people who are doing sales, who are doing commission jobs, they're quick to sell you something, right?
Yes,
But
yes.
what makes you sort of, what is the proposition that you bring to the table where, someone wants to work with you with someone else?
For sure. I mean, first we have to understand anyone who comes in any environment where there's a sale to be had or to buy products, they came there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what's that reason? Often when we're quick to the sale, we disregard that reason. We think of the attributes we like and we start presenting that to the customer as the benefits. And lo and behold, they want to think about it. Well, the reverse comes true. Just remember, we're 1 out of 8 billion people. My experience is different from anyone else's on the planet. But that person who's buying, their experience is different. So if you
Mm,
ask them questions about what they want, what they're seeking, how their lifestyle is, why they're looking for this particular product, it will give you a bunch of information that's important to them, which is
mm,
often disregarded, by the way. A lot of people hear this information and they just hear it to communicate so they can get the sale, but they're not
mm,
listening. So when you listen and like play Sherlock Holmes, I say it, the person will share the information that they need.
mm,
Your job is to tie it down to the attributes of the product. Your job is to
mm,
say, hey, look, you did say you like this. You did say that your life is this way. Well, this product will allow you to expedite it in this way. So it's really about being humble, asking questions, getting to know that person, and then sharing them how their what they need or their lifestyle tie it down to the sale.
mm,
So it's solving a problem for them and it's
mm,
letting them know why it works for them. So again, it's not about sales, it's about conversation, it's about creating awareness. If you share enough information, people will know naturally how things will work for them. So that's
mm.
that's kind of what I teach in terms of sales.
Nice, nice. That's a good way. That's the foundation. You gotta learn those roots. So, Michael, if a young person is listening right now, right, and they want to get into a business, they want to start something, right?
Yes.
What would you recommend? Would you say, automotive? There's so much digital marketing. I do phones.
Yes.
Everyone is telling you what to do, right?
This is
Yeah,
facts.
yeah. What would you tell someone that I want to start something, but I have no idea where to go about it?
And this is the key. Starting some because everybody has some kind of ideas, but
Yeah.
they don't necessarily trust it. So start in the heart.
Mm.
And I'll ask a question. What would you do if you didn't get paid for it? What would you do if you just woke up and you got money guaranteed and you could do something? That's the start
Wow.
right there. Now, the thing about that start, it's not going to look as to what you see around you. So if you start
Mm.
playing the comparison game, you're
Mm.
going to realize that nobody's doing this. I don't know if it will be effective and all these kind of things. So start with what's in the heart because I believe in this wonderful Lord God that has you know really changed my life. And one thing I noticed, there's a lot of things in our heart that it's planted already. And when I look at my business and what I did, I was a finance manager. Now I'm Coach Mike. I'm going to places around the country and I'm teaching on mindset. Where did that come from? Well, that was in my heart, but it wasn't something related to making money. So find that thing in your heart that you feel is what drives you. Where do you want to be with that? And just jump in.
Mm.
That's literally it. It's again courage before confidence. Do what you think you need to do. The world will bring the rest. You'll notice that if you look back in your life, when you did something, you didn't necessarily know what it was, but it
Mm.
always came together. So I think action solves a lot of problems
Mm.
because when you take action, you start getting feedback and doors open. So I encourage people not to look from here to the end. You can't do
Mm.
that.
Mm.
Look here to the next step. And if you keep taking steps, doors will open. So the first thing, follow what's in that heart, take that step, and then the rest will conspire to do it on its own. When you
Mm.
plant a seed, the seed's going to grow. Also, don't expect immediate gratification.
100%.
Everything takes time. A baby comes out of a womb, it takes time to walk, right? You plant a seed for a tree, the tree takes time to grow. A matter
Mm.
of fact, the business often is the last thing to grow. When you think of planting a seed for a tree, I'll say an apple tree, the fruit's the last thing to come off the
Yeah,
tree.
yeah,
So it's
100%.
about trusting the process and diving in and kind of like you said earlier, honing in on it, not reflecting on what other people are doing.
Mm. 100%. You gotta nurture those seeds so they can flourish.
This
At the
is it,
end,
man.
that's the
Seeds need to
foundation.
be watered.
Yeah, yeah. I like how you talked about faith, man. I think I also see that you're a family man as well too. But tell me, how does in Proverbs it talks about as iron sharp as iron, another person sharp as another person, right?
Hmm.
So how does environment, really make an impact on our lives? Because I realize as you start to get more information, you start to sharpening your mindset, you
Yes.
realize the people around you sometimes can be holding you back, right? So that's a
Hmm.
great reminder. And Proverbs it reminds us that, if you sharpen yourself and you hang around other people that are also sharpening themselves, it becomes that ripple effect. Everybody's sort of becoming better, becoming. So how has that faith part been? What do you think about that Proverbs? It's I know your faith, and how has that been in your life, and how has that made you the man you are today?
Oh, wow. That's a big question
Yeah.
because faith has changed my life. Before 2019, I didn't believe in nothing. I believed in my own work. I believed in carrying all the worries, all the pain, all the stress. And then I found out that when I read the Bible, I read some
Mm,
verses similar to that, and I realized this is just truth. So I started attaching to that truth.
mm,
Attaching to faith, how faith has shaped me. Well, faith is an action word, it's not an idea or
mm.
a concept. So a lot of
Wow.
people will say they have faith, but what happens when times aren't lining up with what you want? Do you trust in that faith or do you resort to worry? Our skills, our times of reflections, our times of pain that we transformed, they're not for us to hold, they're for us to share
Mm,
and create awareness for others. So you got to look at your surroundings, you got to look at who you're with, and you got to look at that mindset and allow that to reflect on how your mindset is, because at the end of the day, we all have an obligation to serve. Coach Mike is a brand that's created to serve.
mm,
Literally,
mm,
my money is made in the F&I office. F&I is finance and insurance in the automotive business. It's the finance manager who I train. That's where my core business is. The Coach Mike is because I have an obligation to give back.
mm,
You
mm,
have to give back. You have to sharpen iron. So rather than expecting your iron to be sharpened, try to sharpen someone else's, and you'll notice that there's a ripple effect on the opportunities you get.
mm. I'm with you, man, 100%.
Yeah.
How did you find that gift to be able to? Because everybody like you talk about people tell you like you have these doubts and these limiting beliefs, but I believe there's also this mantra that an African proverb: each one teach one. Right? When you get information, you
Hmm.
get knowledge. Being
Yeah.
able to pass it down to somebody else, you have an abundance mindset. Where nowadays a lot
Hmm.
of time, you're in the automotive industry. I'm in the phone business. A lot of time you hear people are always competing with one another. And when we realize the market is so vast and big, if we
Yeah.
collaborate, everybody wins because there's so much, money to go around. But I realized with that each one teach one mindset, you realize you can help somebody else, right? Because
Hmm.
at the end of the day, you help them out, they'll tell somebody else that, oh, he's actually a genuine person. Right? He's not just trying to
Definitely.
make a transaction. And I realize that's important also too in business because you're in the helping business. You're helping people ultimately to
Hmm.
get paid. How did you find that gift to be able to, teach and have this? You said this voice, this gift that you have.
Reflection.
Yeah.
Look at your past. Look at the self doubt you had before you did anything.
Mm-hmm.
And look what ended up happening. It always came through. Now imagine eliminating that self doubt. Things will still come through. I look back in my past. I realize that I'm always carrying this self doubt going forward and forward and forward.
Mm-hmm.
But when I look back, if I would have removed it, things happened outside of my control, anyways, to make things happen. So it's first reflecting on your past. When you go to reflect on your past, you start seeing patterns. And those patterns are there's another force out there that making things happen. All we
Mm-hmm.
do is set the destination. We do what we're willing to do and have the courage and watch how everything lines things up. So the idea is taking a step at a time. So that's basically what I would share because after you do that, you become to see things differently. And then you start finding out here's the real formula. If you want your life to upgrade, help somebody else's mindset. So there's an obligation to teach one because in that teaching, that universe will bless you with more. It respects somebody who is able to share that knowledge because consciousness arises.
Yeah.
And when it comes to competing, I mean, there's no one who could do something the same way you could do it. But you're right, with the collaboration, we live in this scarce mindset where everything's limited, where when you have an abundant mindset, everything's abundant. So it's about fixed versus growth mindset. You just
Mm.
got to let yourself loose and jump in,
Yeah,
you
100%. I
know?
think, and once you find out where you are on that boat, that facing growth, you gotta take yourself on that growth mindset because that's that determination and will to keep
This is
going
it.
when
This is
when
it.
times get harder. So, Coach Mike, man, tell me, man, what's been the biggest, challenges I like to say, or opportunities that came your way, and how have you been able to go past that, break those limits?
Yeah, sometimes it's external environments, sometimes it's mental environments because
Mm,
you don't want to be stagnant. You don't want to be doing the same thing. You always have to kind of reinvent yourself, right? So, what keeps me avoiding or dealing with the challenges is reframing them. Because, see,
mm,
life doesn't give you challenges or problems, only opportunities. It's
mm,
usually within
mm,
these challenges is where you develop skills. So
mm,
whenever I have a challenge, it's reframed to understand, okay, what skills am I being developed? And as you work through it, it's going to give you another level of consciousness. So if you aspire to be anything in this world, you're going to find out the moment you start deciding on what you want to be, you're going to get challenges.
mm,
However, they're not challenges, they're skill development. So
mm,
that when you become that place, you can manage it. So the first thing to do is to reframe them and understand that this is a stepping stone. This is skill development. This is something that is going to allow me to be that person I aspire to. I have a limited knowledge, and by solving this problem, it's going to give me more information that also equips me to
mm.
teach
Yeah,
another
yeah,
person,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it's really about reframing those challenges. So
Mm,
what happens when they come in? So I get a specific challenge. For instance, my business was only in Winnipeg, and I wanted to expand past
mm,
that. So I felt, okay, this is an opportunity. So I started developing a CMS system. I started
uh,
developing reach out, outreach. And
mm,
without that challenge, I
mm,
wouldn't have created any news opportunities. Look at COVID. Because of COVID, a lot of people restructured their business to be able to be capable online. They had to make changes. So the challenge of COVID created some
mm,
opportunities. So don't see problems or challenges, only see opportunities. And honestly, if you want to double your success, you got to double your failure because there's a learning in these challenge moments that you can't get.
mm,
A skillful captain was not made in calm waters. So expect challenges, wish challenges to happen
mm.
because if there's no challenges, I mean, we're complacent.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's about reframing them.
yeah. No, I like your perspective, man. You're sort of it always goes back to the reflection piece. Like you're always looking at the bad with the good. Like, okay,
Definitely.
business is hard, but think about what about if you're not doing business?
Mm-hmm.
When you reframe, you start. Because I used to have that mindset when I was first getting started. Because entrepreneurship is not easy. 1,000%. People sell you this idea. You're first gonna get started. You have this marshmallow. You get all the way to the top. Things are
Yeah.
figuring out. You realize you
Yeah.
come back down. Things are not going your way. Now you have to climb back up, right? So
Yeah.
those things are always coming, but you realize, like, yeah, be grateful to where you are, because I think that's the gratitude mindset. Where I remember a couple of years ago when I was first getting started, I used to work at DoorDash. I
Mm-hmm.
used to drive 100 hours to make $100.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when I reflect on now where I am in my journey, being able to make money, whatever, help people, that perspective of like, oh, I'm still gonna do the things that got me here. I think a lot of
Mm-hmm.
time we sort of get, oh, I don't want to do that anymore. Like I want to, like you said, build systems and that. Yeah, that's good, but what actually got you here in the beginning? What kind of person? Because as you start to get more money, if you start to change, then you realize that's not who you are, right? So
Yes.
the thing is, like, as you start to grow and you evolve in entrepreneurship, how do you stay? You don't want to stay complacent, but how do you stay true to yourself? I feel like that's the
Mm-hmm.
missing piece with a lot of people. You see that, or they get bigger and they realize, oh, I don't want to do that anymore. But you realize that's what
Yeah.
got you there, right? So that's one thing I realized in
100%.
entrepreneurship, in your journey, especially, like, you're still the man you are today. You're still out there. You're helping people. You've discovered this ability to want to do more, right? Because you don't want to stay
Yeah.
satisfied. You're going back to your roots, and you said you're going back to Jamaica. So tell us a little bit about that, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's funny. In 2019, I made a statement to be the number one Canadian speaker in the world on mindset, and
Oh wow.
boy, has that been bringing the like challenges for skill development like I couldn't believe. A few days from now, on the 29th, I'm headed to Jamaica. I'm doing a keynote speak, 500 entrepreneurs on mindset. It's all
Wow.
about growth, and it goes to show that look, one day I just took a step.
Hmm.
Now I'm going to Jamaica. So
Wow.
this is key. Now, gratitude is so key that a lot of people skip that process and understanding where they're at. Most people right now, they're living in a dream that they once had. Could you
Hmm.
believe this? They're living in a dream that they once had, but we're always asking for more. We're hardly giving respect to what's been produced already. If you stop for a moment and look where you currently are, you'll see that it was a dream one day. And
Hmm.
what does this mean? Just dream. Because when you dream and take action, seeds are planted. What you have set up today has nothing to do with today. It has to do with 10 years ago when you took the
Wow.
first job, when you took the first opportunity, you trusted the process, you developed the skills, and those skills allow you to be confident in this role.
Hmm.
Now, this is not the end of the story. I mean, at the end of the day, life is a daring adventure. So the key is to understand that there's always going to be an evolution. And the thinking, actions, and procedures that got us where we are today, they're not fit to get us to where we want to go tomorrow. So we always
Wow.
have to upgrade. So I go back to these challenges because they're the only upgrade moments in our life. Look at the good friends around you. They coddle you. They're
Hmm.
comfort. But look at the naysayers, the one who say you can't do it. They've pulled some fire out of you.
Hmm.
So it's all about that reframing. So going to Jamaica, I could drop a tear right now because it started off as a dream. And I tell you, I may have a voice right now, but it came from straight confidence. I had to develop my own theory that my mind is the CEO, my body is the employee. When my mind says something, you go get it. Now,
Hmm.
you can't do that without discipline.
100%.
Discipline is so key in this mix, and it's not about busy day. It's consistency, not intensity. And what I mean by that is when I started my business, I was beat, I was defeated, I was
Hmm.
stuck. A lot of people feel stuck. I didn't know where to go, but I knew this: if you plant a seed, it will grow. So every day I reached out to one dealership and I did my workout routine. I do
Wow.
my workout routine up to this day. I started March 2nd, 2020. I do it every second day just for the discipline. Because honestly, if you can't do what you say you're going to do in life, there's nothing for you out there.
Hmm.
But if you could do what you say you're going to do consistently, because that's what pros have to do, you're going to develop that life. So the idea is I took that discipline and then I called one dealer every day. And some days I didn't have nothing else to do because I was felt beat. But I did that in 2 days. That's two dealers. In 3 days, that's three dealers. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
Hmm.
10. So here's the formula. If you have a goal, say to be a stockbroker, okay, and you say watch an hour of YouTube video today, you sleep the whole rest of the day. You watch an hour tomorrow, you sleep the rest of the day. And you'll be amazing at that. So a lot of the things we're doing is not pertaining to building that goal. So again, it's consistency, not intensity. And by doing that, all of a sudden the universe is going to open doors, and I'm going to Jamaica to speak, and I could just be grateful on that dream, that seed I planted.
Wow.
You know,
that seed probably started a long time ago, right? And now it's being able to
long
flourish.
time.
Yeah. So tell me, how does focus play a major role in that? Because like to be able to see it from years ago to now, how has that helped? Because I think nowadays focus is I'll talk about focus and clarity. If you want success,
Definitely.
it's focus and clarity, especially in business and in life and whatever it is that you're doing, right? Because nowadays so many things are coming at you. Information is like coming at a million pace, right? It's fast, man. So how does focus and clarity play in your role in what you're doing right now and the man you became?
It's essential. But when I say consistency, not intensity, there's certain things I call 10x tasks. So say you develop a goal. Say my goal is to be into more dealerships. Okay. So you set your goal. Now I have to think of what tasks build that goal. And that's to me reaching out to dealerships. So focus on the tasks that build the goal. So for instance, I call 10x tasks are tasks that you do that are related to the goal that you're trying to accomplish. Now, let me be specific here. If my goal is to reach out to dealerships, by me working on my website, creating my business card, doing graphics design, you didn't do nothing. You didn't reach out to your audience. You didn't do nothing. Those are like prerequisites. In the game of hockey, you have a hockey puck, right? That doesn't win games. That's a prerequisite. It's the stick handling. So just know when you do your marketing, you do all these fun stuff for the business, you didn't do work. It's only when you reach out to your target audience. So it's focusing on those 10x tasks. Now, I also have a concept called 1-minute seeds. They're things that we delay that if we just do, they take under a minute, they start a whole chain of events that happen while you're doing nothing. For instance, returning an email. You could have a personal email from somebody who wants to do business with you. You say, I'm going to get to it tomorrow. You don't get to it. When you start getting to it, that's when it starts growing. So those quick tasks, plant them right away. That way, while you're working, they grow in the background. So I think it's a combination of focusing on the tasks that grow the business and the little quick ones that also plant those seeds. So focus doesn't mean you're focused the full day on the gig. You just make sure you have 1 or 2 things you do daily for the business, because that compounds over time. Let me give an example. We're here because of this idea of compound efforts. Now I'll use compound interest to kind of tie it down to make it make sense. So a lot of people are familiar with compound interest. If you actually take a penny every day and you double it every day, just 1 penny, 1 penny, 2 penny, 4 penny, 8 penny, for 30 days, that's over $1 million. But if you look at it today, it's 1 penny. Tomorrow it's 2 penny. The next day, 4 penny. It doesn't look much, but overall, after a while, it's now creating interest for you. That's how the wealthy get wealthy. Same with our efforts. It's compound efforts. You're going to do stuff today. Tomorrow, you're not going to see nothing for it. But look where you are today. It's a compounding of what was in the past. So as long as you keep moving, don't worry. Things will compound back because the seeds that you planted years ago, they're going to grow. If you plant a seed, it's going to grow. So that's what I would say is focus on those tasks that drive the goal rather than the other stuff that look good and feels like you had a busy day.
Yeah. 100%. That's a framework that you could literally map out and use,
and that's the idea, right? You want to be able to use information that's practical, but the application is key.
Yeah, 100%. And I also want to talk about how I met you. Because I remember I talked about this story and we talked about it earlier. I literally saw you at a barbershop. And you were talking about mindset. You're talking about improving yourself. I never forgot about it until a couple of weeks ago. I reached out to you. I'm like, Mike, I see the work that you're doing. I want to connect with you. I want to do a podcast. So it's important that, oftentimes when people say something to us, there's always that information that they label us with a spark, with an idea. Or like that guy is, like they say, whatever you put out there tends to manifest, right? So if you put bad things in the world, it manifests bad things to you, right? But I believe it's about people and relationships. So when I reached out, I'm like, this guy he's saying what he is, what he's about, because I'm looking at the things you're posting and the things you're doing. We talked about earlier, how has that been for you, especially in the business that you're in? Because I believe all our desires and wants are behind another human being.
Definitely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, relationships are key for many reasons. If you took one person and another person and they're over here and over here, that's 1 + 1 is 2. They're 2 people. When you put people together, that's synergy. That's like 1,000 people because the ideas that spark from ideas. So putting 2 people together creates synergy. And that synergy is powerful. So you want to be around people for many reasons. One is, again, my unique life, your unique life, you put it together, that synergy creates opportunities we couldn't see in our individual places. So that's one. Now, two is people in relationships I use for reflection, meaning that how do you treat somebody who mistreats you? Right? Do you confirm that if somebody does some damage to you, you do damage back and you ride that energy and that energy takes away from your goal, or do you let it go and learn how to be humble? So I feel like by dealing with people, it allowed me to also open up that idea of reflection and reflect on how I'm treating them, how I'm showing up. Often enough, when somebody needs something, how do you show up for them? And I feel like reflection and relationships allow you to know so much about yourself, right? So they're key and instrumental, but especially that synergy that comes when you put two people together. There's a whole mosh posh of ideas that you couldn't come up on your own. Always be involved with folks, no matter what capacity is, because it just creates that awareness.
Yeah, 100%. You can't win by yourself. You need people, and you need a good environment for you to in order to succeed. And I believe
100%.
it's important. So, Michael, tell me, like, what does the future look like? I know you told me you're going to Jamaica. You want to impact people, and what is purpose and the mission that you're working towards? Moving forward. What does that look like for the next couple of years? So I know you're a long time thinker. I can just see it right hand.
Yeah, I follow what I preach. I set intentions. I don't do any specific. So I said I want to be the number one mindset coach in Canada. And what that means is I'm just doing what I think I need to do, and it's open up. But ultimately, I want to serve. My role is to serve. If you want to double your life, help somebody else see straight, help somebody else with awareness, help somebody else understand and look at you as an example. And I find that by doing that, opportunities just open up for you. So where I want to be is just in a place where I could help people transform. See, I'm not here for motivation, for hype up session, for inspiration. It's for transformation. So anybody who's hearing any information from this, if you don't take it and apply it, it's just information. Information is not good. It's not good enough, because a lot of people have the answers already. It's like, I always think of this, like, say I had a coffee cup and it's full of all this knowledge and it's spilling over for people and they're getting another book to read. I say, stop, drink the juice. We need to apply it. Our stuck moment is we're not applying the ideas we have.
Yeah.
The ideas are deceiving because they feel like we've been anywhere. Until you bring it to the physical, it's not going to do enough. So I want to be able to help people to take their philosophies, to take their ideas, and hopefully be the spark that allows them to take that action. Because no words I say could do it. It's somebody else being able to take the words and bring it to their own physical environment. So it's to inspire transformation.
Yeah.
And however I do that, I'm letting the Lord decide where I go. I just show up. For instance, this podcast came up. I said yes. And that's how it comes out. Could I have planned this? No. But by setting my goal, he's going to bring the opportunities. My job is to say yes and walk through the doors. Yeah.
You gotta take God take control, man. You show
Amen.
up, you do the work, and
Amen.
everything. So Michael, tell me, man, what's one piece of word of advice you would give to someone out there that's listening to this podcast?
Change is inevitable. Suffering is optional. So if you find yourself stuck, the answer is in your activities. Look daily at what you're doing, and you'll see the answers to your activities and where you want to be. So I would always say, make that choice to go into the uncomfort zone. And what I did, I reframed it. My comfort zone is my uncomfortable zone, like I said, because the uncomfort is where everything's at. We live in an upside down kingdom. Reframe it. So take action. If there's one thing I could actually say, take action. It's not about aiming first, then shooting. Shoot first, because the feedback you get from that will allow you to course correct. So take action and have faith. Trust the process. You'll be fine.
Yeah, that's remarkable. You got some amazing advice, man. I'm not gonna, it's powerful. You're also a man of action. You're also a family man, a man of God, right? I see a lot of the things that you're doing online, man, and your future looks bright, man. I think you got whatever it takes. You're going because you have that mindset, determination, and will. Where a lot of people sort of lack that, and it's what you're doing is great, because a lot of times, especially in our community, most people are getting this information and they want to keep it to themselves, because you found a way to be able to express yourself, right? And you found something that you're passionate about, and you want to be able to expand it. Like I talk about each one teach one to the next generation. So Thank you so much for jumping on the
Yeah, thank
podcast,
you.
bro. And where can people find you, Michael?
You can find me on Instagram, Coach Mike Speaks, also CoachMike.com. And these are places where I often post some positive messages, reminders of who we are. We're all capable beyond measure. And you know what? As you follow me on Coach Mike, you see the journey as it grows, as you see how I help transformation. I always have updates on there, but that's where you could find me. Respect for everyone who's taken the time to listen to this. So just remember, the change you're looking for is not outside of yourself. It's in the application of what you're doing daily. So look no further than inside your own environment and offer yourself that change by redirecting.
Man, you got some great words
Yeah,
of
man.
advice, my
Thank you,
friend.
boss.